Our next day two talk in Strand 4 is by Griselda Beacon. Griselda loves reading picture books with children to foster diversity and inclusion. She holds an MA in literature and language teaching from Philipps-Universität Marburg, Germany. She's a regular teacher, trainer at the Norwich Institute for Language Education in the UK. And she currently teaches children and young adults literature at a teacher training college in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Welcome, Griselda. Now over to you. You can share your slides.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for this nice welcome and for your nice words. And I would like to thank particularly to YLT SIG IATEFO for this kind invitation to share the work we do at home in Argentina in our teaching training colleges. So I will be sharing the screen so as to share my talk today, which is, wait a second, Inclusive English Language Classrooms, Promoting Children's Anti-Bias Attitudes Through Picture Books. And as I say, this springs from my teaching and working with student teachers. So even though I say I, when I say I, it's very much a collective we. So here it goes. I hope you find it interesting. What are we going to do today? Well, I hope that we can wear the anti-bias glasses. And so first, I'll try to introduce what I understand for diversity and inclusion to promote anti-bias attitudes. Then I will show you why I choose picture books, especially because they include an artistic and aesthetic proposal to work with inclusion in primary English language classrooms. And together with picture books, I will also share some teaching ideas which foster creative responses to problematize naturalized bias in the classroom. Even though I separate them into three parts, you will see that there is a lot of overlapping in the presentation or in this talk. And of course, everything I will share, all the books, etc., they will be all added to the bibliography list at the end of the presentation. And of course, I can share this presentation with everybody afterwards. So you can just write to me and I will send it to you. So diversity and inclusion. What do I understand for diversity? Diversity is an inherent trait of human beings as part of a plural humanity, evidenced in identities, perspectives, cultures, beliefs, endeavors, context, intentions, needs, and languages. So what I see is that our classes are this in particular. There in our classes, we have this plural humanity with all these diverse perspectives and identities. That's why it's, I cannot understand how we can ignore diversity. Now, what happens when we embody diversity in education? Lots of things happen, and this is my point. It impacts on the construction of the learning environment and the syllabi and the curricula to afford full accessibility to all. These are the glasses, full accessibility to all. And when you embody diversity in education, it inevitably exposes bias, prejudice, inequity, and injustice. And it promotes curiosity and respect for others. It contributes to developing critical consciousness and challenges hegemonic dominant practices. And it creates room for learners to undergo intercultural experiences and to exercise democratic principles. I just loved Carol Reed's presentation this morning, the plenary, because she was going deep into some of these things I'm mentioning. So I think it somehow continues with what she was trying to express in her plenary. Now, why picture books? because they are a multisensory, interactive, and holistic experience I love the children to go through. And it has to do with the flaps and the colors or not, the aesthetics of the book, not the shape of the books, and the pop-ups and the textures. So how picture books appeal to all the senses. And when stories are in picture books, they are embedded in an artistic and aesthetic proposal. Now, a lot has been said about the importance of using stories in our English classes. From all those reasons, I selected the ones I highly value. And the main one is that stories are full of words. And as language teachers, I think that is an anchor for us, right? And because when we read stories with children, we provide opportunities for spontaneous, extensive listening and speaking, which is so important to embed the children in language, right? And to use the book talk, as Carol Reed was saying, with the cover, with the pictures itself, and allowing them to express themselves. Obviously, stories feed children's imagination, and for our promoting anti-bias attitudes, they help introduce complex topics. Now, for today, I chose 3 areas I would like to explore when we deal with inclusive education. And even though I say this, that, and the other, actually there is a lot of intersectionality going on. It is multi-layered, and this will also be seen in the books I chose for today. So I chose to explore gender with children, particularly to challenge stereotypes, gender stereotypes. I would like to explore ethnicity and race to see how children books work for representation, allow for representation in the classroom, and migration to allow children to go through intercultural experiences. And this is an important infographic I would like to share for us as teachers to pay attention to the importance of choosing the picture books. These are infographics that are taken from the data collected by the Cooperative Children's Book Center in Wisconsin. And they work with diversity in children's books related to ethnicity and race particularly. And in this case, we see that in 2015, 73.3% the main characters in the children's books were white. Thanks to exposing discrimination, in 2018, see what happened. 50% of the children that appear in children's books were white as main characters, right? And look at what happened during the pandemic in 2020. 41% were white. The ones that grew a lot are animals. Animals here from 12.5% up to 29% in 2020. Why? Well, because with some delicate topics, choosing animals is a way that we may find not to expose children in the classroom. However, when it comes to race and ethnicity, I foster actual children as main characters, especially to give room for everybody in the classroom to feel represented in the books we read. So that's why from the 3 books I chose, the one I'm going to introduce now has a lot to do with a real character called Rocket. Now, the teaching ideas, they intend to foster creative responses, as I said, to problematize naturalized bias in the classroom. And this is a strategy that we tend to follow. That is, we read the book with the children, there's a lot of book talk, there's a lot of spontaneous interaction. And then the first approach to the books has a lot to do with something creative, because we would like them to express themselves and because we would like them to connect with the books. And then afterwards, there are lots of other activities, more linguistically oriented, if the book allows for that. So let me show you some of these books. I would like to work with, wait a minute, I'm going to stop sharing for a minute so I can show the books I have here. And well, the books I have for today are these two ones, Look Up and Clean Up. And these two books, they have this amazing little girl who has a very effervescent personality. She is amazingly curious. And in Look Up, I love this book. Look at the cat. They are both dressed as astronauts because she loves to explore the space and the universe. And she reads about rockets, and she even reads, and she introduces this information in the book. She reads about the first African-American woman who actually went to space. And that, of course, is her inspiration. So I find this book is amazing when we talk about gender stereotypes for girls in science, right? To stop believing that because of our gender, there are certain professions we may not pursue. And of course, what is also interesting is that she belongs to a particular ethnic minority and she carries it with pride. Look at her hairdo. In the other book, and besides, she's called Rocket because the day she was born, there was a big rocket which blasted off, and that's what the mother tells. And so that's the connection with space. This was from 2019, and the second one is from 2020. And here she goes to visit her grandparents in Jamaica. And here is Action for Change, what becomes very, very relevant. And it connects a lot with the book that, with the story that Carol Reed shared with us this morning. Yes, when the shark had a tummy ache because of the plastic bottles and boxes it ate. Now here in Clean Up, she goes to visit the grandparents, and I love different things about this book, but there is one that I find amazingly interesting, which is this picture. She goes surfing with her grandmother. Look at her grandmother and tell me whether it's not challenging ageism, so challenging hegemonic discourses, right? And here, in this, there are lots of other things to explore. I just choose one or two because of time constraints. But here, what she notices is that the beach is very, very dirty. And that, of course, is an issue for her. So she starts a cleanup campaign, and she involves everybody, tourists, locals, adults, children, to participate. And at the very end, the last thing is that one of the members of the community, who happens to be an artist, she creates this kind of artistic dustbins for people to use at the beach. So these two books, besides, let me go back to sorry, to share the screen here. Sorry for this. Here, obviously, when it comes to clean up, one of the activities we suggest is to intervene artistically the school dustbins and to have cleanup campaigns at school to support reuse, reduce, and recycle. This is something that we do a lot. And it's something that we need to continue doing, right? And here the added creative part to decorate the dustbins. And in Look Up, one of the things that we thought was a possibility in the classroom is to create our rockets with recyclable material. And we take the example from the very book, because look at Rocket here. She is playing with her cat and she has made a rocket with a cardboard box. So we could do something similar in class with the children. And I also added the picture of the author and illustrator, Nathan Bryan and Dapo Adeola, because it is also an element for us teachers when we choose books for children, whether the books, especially those that are related with minorities, who writes the books, and to give the opportunity for writers who belong to that minority to be part of our class as well. Somebody mentions Pepelt and in the chat box, and yes, of course, Pepelt is an amazing project you have with Sandy Morao and lots of and Gail Ellis, who is also here, and it's an amazing resource. I use a lot, my students use a lot to get inspiration, mini lessons, etc., to add up to this this kind of work we are when it comes to anti-bias attitudes. Now, let me see if I have time. Yes, I do. I'm very happy about that. To work with the next book. This book I chose for to allow children for migration and to allow children to undergo an intercultural experience. And this book, let me show the book. I'm going to stop sharing the screen to see if I can share the book with you. This is the book, The Suitcase. Look at the fellows. Now these are animals, as you can see, and the writer is Chris Naylon Ballesteros. And in this book, we have an element, a suitcase, because look at that. This is the stranger who comes to town, and he carries a big suitcase. And when he arrives in this new place, these other people there, animals, they're curious. And so they say, what do you have in your suitcase? And so he says, well, I have my teacup. And he shows, a teacup. And they say, oh, well, that's such a big suitcase for a teacup. Well, I also have my table and my chair to drink my tea. Ah, that's too small a suitcase for a table. And he says, well, I also have my kitchen and my wooden cabin because that's my home. But they're really curious to see what's inside the suitcase. So this fellow who has traveled a lot is very, very tired and falls asleep. So the other three, who are very, very curious, they want to open the suitcase. And they actually open the suitcase and break the suitcase. And what they find is a broken teacup. And they find a picture of his cabin at home. Well, they do not feel well for this, and they don't know what to do. But they start doing something which is amazing. When this little fellow wakes up, they show him what they did. The first thing they did is they repaired the cup. And you remember what Spencer said about repairing objects, right? And it's his cup from home. So even if it is repaired, it is the anchor to his background. And then they say, I'm sorry I broke your suitcase. We fixed it as best we could. And we've been busy while you were sleeping, and we hope you like it. So what they show him is the rest. Look, they recreated his wooden cabin. So this little fellow sees it and he says, thank you, it is perfect. There is just one tiny problem. What is the problem? We think we are going to need more teacups. And now he finds himself in his new place and he has just started having friends. So sense of belonging. So this story I have just read, when we read this in class, what we think or what we did actually with my student teachers is we created our own suitcase in the classroom, our English class suitcase. And everyone brought something that was dear for them to put inside the suitcase. Well, now imagine that in class, when you have all these objects the children bring from their home, the potential for spontaneous, extensive listening and speaking activities, right? Playing games, remember this, who brought it, and how, if I describe it, would you guess what it was, etc., etc. So and of course, the powerful message that the story carries, which is, the feeling of this stranger when he comes to this new place, and after a while being accepted and being integrated, and learning what it is to feel to be in the position of our blue fellow. The last book I would like to share with you is one which it's by this one. I have it here, by Jasmine Ismail. I'm a Girl. I find this book very powerful, and I will show the book first, and then I will tell you the activity we thought of for this. And in this book, I'm a Girl, we have this creature who says she is a girl. However, whatever she does, all along, all the others say that she's a boy. And so she reacts to that, right? So for example, when she drinks her soda, then the waitress said, "Oh, boys are so messy." And of course, the reaction she has is, "I'm a girl, I'm a girl, I'm a girl." And it goes like that all along. Yes, when she runs fast with her scooter, she says, "I'm a girl, I'm a girl, I'm a girl." But there's somebody saying, "Look how fast that boy is going." And of course, she turns around and she says, "I'm a girl." And that's the same when she goes swimming. Look, she's about to jump into the swimming pool. So you imagine that it's going to be a blast. Wow. And there's someone there saying, "Hey, watch out, young man. I'm a girl." And when she plays music, she plays the drums. "I'm a girl." She goes like that. Children love doing the "I'm a girl" thing. And of course, there's also a moment in which it's a lot about whose toys, which toys are for boys, which toys are for girls. And then she's running a race. And when she's running a race, right, somebody says the same thing again and again. So she stops the race and she says, "I'm a girl," very assertive. And there is this other little fellow here who says, "I'm a boy, I'm a girl, I'm a boy. It's brilliant to be us." And that's the end of the story. We are us. So this story has a lot to do with our right, the right children have to be who they want to be, who they feel they are. So for this book, the activity we thought of is a very simple one, which is putting a basket in the middle of the classroom to be filled with toys everybody can play with. So children bring the toys in, and then we look what is inside. And what happens is that all sorts of toys come here, and we are challenging the gender stereotyping, right, of colors and toys for boys or girls, yes? And also the ambiguity of this character is something to work with in class. So to round off, I would like to finish with this quote, wearing my anti-bias glasses. "Let's celebrate diversity by making it possible in contexts where diversity is hidden, silenced, and or criminalized. These contexts are not faraway territories. The need for embracing diversity can be literally found round the corner from our homes." So these are the picture books I used. These are the references I used. I will include Pepelt here. since it is one of the sources we use. Thank you for mentioning it. I included Sandy Morao, who I follow, and her writings. And thank you very much. Here you have some information about me. So thank you. Ready for questions?
Thank you so much, Griselda, for this wonderful presentation. And your enthusiasm is just amazing. And it is amazing how we can work with picture books with kids, how wonderful they are, and we can make them aware of so many situations and help them to explore their individuality, etc. Amazing. I love using picture books. I'll just check if there are any questions. One teacher asks if it's possible for them to make their own picture books. What do you think about that?
Yes, well, the thing with picture books is that sometimes we cannot buy them because they're very, very expensive. So one of the things I do is I create my own material, and we create our own material. Sometimes it is material we use for one picture book. For example, I created one to show you, The Dot by Peter Reynolds. And so, for example, I created my own material to tell the story, right? So it's a very simple material, which is not exactly like the book. It is my recreation of the book. And so like this one, it's so we can tell stories without having to buy the books, right? But I also say if we can, of course, that's amazing. And also expanding on the picture book. For example, if we are working with the dot, like I mentioned right now, expanding on the picture, that the children can expand and they can create their own dot book, and we can use their own dot book to tell the story to other kids. So in the same school, for example, so children in third form creating a picture book called the third form dot book, and we can use it with first formers, for example. That is something that we do as well a lot in class with my student teachers.
Wonderful. And someone's asking about your references. I suppose they can see the slides again on the
Yes, of course we can. Let me see, I will show you the presentation right now so you can see the references. Okay. Wait a minute, I will go back one. Yes, this one.
Okay.
Yes, particularly as I say, I will include definitely Peppelt here, because it is free and it is for everybody, and it is online, and everybody can have access to that amazing material with lots of activities in the classroom, and it's an amazing project. So I will include it here as well. So I will tweak a bit my presentation to send it to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Everyone is extremely enthusiastic about your presentation, so it's amazing. They're all saying wonderful things in the chat box.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much to you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much. Okay, so now we have another 5-minute break, and then we'll see you later.